We have another player saying, it's been a while since my last playthrough, so maybe things change, but as far as I remember, your points would count for defensive sieges as a whole. The only time I played a hopeless defensive siege was while resting in town in a small party and not paying attention to the approaching army. Every time I'd be able to reinforce the besieged city and win the battle. The enemy AI immediately breaks out the siege once they get near the city and tries to siege elsewhere. And then the dev response says, defensive sieges, to my knowledge, follow the same rule set as offensive ones. It is the same mission, but yes, I would also say that defensive siege experience provides less value for players currently, in contrast to offensive sieges, because it happens much less frequently. That is true. They are still trying to find the perfect balance of where the AI will still try to take the fight. They've done this by changing the player number. Well, not changing the... let's say you have 1,000 troops, right? And let's say the castle that you go in to defend has 200 troops and the enemy has, for example, 500 troops, right? No, let's say that they have 800 troops, right? So it's very close. But if you join the castle, it's going to be 1,200 versus 800, right? So they're obviously going to break off. That's way too much. They can't win that siege. So what the devs are trying to do is they're trying to make the... Whenever the AI calculates if they're going to stay in the siege or if they're going to break off, they're trying to make the army that you control or the party that you control, they're trying to make it so if, let's say, for example, you have 1,000 troops, the AI, when they're doing their calculations, is going to see, I think it's like, what is it? It's like 50% or 60% of what you actually have. So when the AI does their calculation of should I stay or not, they're going to see your 1,000 men as 600 men, just to make it more balanced and just so you can experience some more siege battles. Obviously, if you still outnumber by a huge amount, it doesn't matter if it's counted by 60%, they're still going to break off. But if it's more closely together, let's say, for example, you have 600 guys, the castle has 200 people, and they have 800 people. So when you join, it's going to be an 800 versus 800, which is pretty much balanced. And when they do their calculations, they're going to see only 60% of what you actually have out of your 800, which is going to be majorly less, and then therefore they're going to stay in that siege because they're going to be like, oh, we could win this. And that provides you with some good defensive siege experience. So that's kind of what they're working on. It still needs to keep switching the percentages because stuff still isn't working as it's supposed to, and the AI is still breaking off a lot. But I think over time we will have a good number for it. I think I explained that kind of rough, but hopefully you guys kind of understand. Like the AI pretty much sees you as a smaller army than you actually are, and that's why they decide to stay in the siege. And then he says, and it would be nice if we could find a balanced solution that would allow players to experience that more often. Yep, that's what they're trying. We have already made some such tweaks throughout EA, such as having the AI take player strength into account less strongly when they calculate a siege target or an assault action. Boom. That sounds a lot better than what I said, but yeah, basically that. You know what I mean?